Good afternoon, everybody. Great to have you here. Last session of the day, he told me because we're last that it's okay for us to go up until 7 o'clock. I don't plan on doing that because I want to get home too. But we have the most important people here, so we'll go ahead and get started. Several years ago, I was the head of IT in a law firm. We had our headquarters down in San Diego. We had representation in 6 states. We had an office in Mexico. The type of law that we practiced was such that we were in an extremely regulated industry, and so the notes that we took on behalf of our clients really had to be pretty pristine. And the nature of the type of law that we practiced was very transactional. And so it was not uncommon for our firm to have 100,000 transactions in a day. And depending on the day and the month and where we were, we could push 200,000, 300,000 transactions. And all of these transactions had to be there and correct and available all the time. And when I first got hired onto the firm, they had just purchased a new system, and so the first probably about year of my job, we were migrating from this old system into this new system, and I'm sure that I've probably been the only one to ever have a major IT project go south, but it did, and it was really quite painful for the firm as a whole. But we were able to kind of plow our way through it, and we got everything stabilized and up and running. We got everybody trained on this new system, and things were running pretty smoothly about 18 months into the project, and spent the next 6 months really kind of doing some baselines and okay, where really are we? And so about 2 years into my employment there, I went to the owner of the firm. It was a Friday afternoon. And I told him, I said, I want you to think about something over the weekend. And then let's get back together on Monday, and we can talk about this and kind of come up with a plan. So if you can just think how much downtime is acceptable. If we had something where the system went down, how much downtime is acceptable for the business? Well, he just immediately responded, zero downtime. I said, okay, well, let me tell you what that means. And so I started explaining, we need to create a hot site, and it's got to be in a geographically different location. And I started listing everything that is needed in order to ensure availability of 100%. And he looked at me and he said, that is ridiculous. Well, that's what it takes to have zero downtime. And but the conversation was great because it opened the door for us to talk about how to approach IT, how to approach cybersecurity, and how to do this kind of on a risk-based basis. And so we still agreed that we're going to take the weekend to really work through this and then get back on Monday and start developing a plan on what we're going to do moving forward to be able to, in the most cost-effective way, ensure the least amount of downtime up to a certain point where he was comfortable with that. And it took us a little bit of time to actually put all of that into place as well, but we were able to finally get it to a point where the technology was there and we were able to support the business and be able to function. And so one of the things that, just as we kind of get going here, mine is not a technical talk. I know that this is SAINTCON, and it's really a great time in the year to get together and really get your geek on. And they've got a lot of real fun games, and I appreciate it. This is really a lot of fun to come and do this, but mine's not technical. So if you're looking for the next new trick, on what you can do with a computer, that's not me. So I'm a businessman that really has a good grasp of technology, and so that's where my focus is. Okay, so we have here in the news. This is August 30th when this article came out. This is just less than 2 months ago. And you can see that criminals use voice AI to steal money. And right there at the beginning of it, you can see, cyber criminals impersonate the voice of the company's executive, and was able to walk away with over $200,000. And there's a lot of talk now about AI, about deep fakes, and some of the technologies that are being developed now, and so this is really kind of a timely, in terms of that conversation. But I want to kind of zero in on this, the executive. Okay, it was the executive's voice, and when the executive speaks, if it's the CEO, what do? You move, right? The CEO has declared, so thus it shall be. Okay. And so here, this is actually just last week. Okay, just last week, executives are not actively engaged in ensuring the effectiveness of the cybersecurity strategy. Now please, don't raise your hand, don't move your head so that way nobody knows, but how many of you say, that's my company, my executives aren't supportive, they're not there, they're not behind the cybersecurity initiatives? Okay, now thinking about this, again, don't raise your hands. Which half are you in? Okay, so is your cybersecurity strategy today, and I mean, if you have been with your organization for 3 months, obviously it is going to be new, but if you've been there for a while, do you have the same cybersecurity strategy that you did a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And so if you are not engaging with your executive level on cybersecurity, then why is there an expectation that they need to engage back? Does that make sense? Okay. So, how do your executives see you? Are you this mystic, like me, my office is down in the basement. I tell them they gave me a corner office, which they did. It just happens to be in the basement. But there's this mysticism, right? You open up a computer chassis and you look down at the motherboard, and what is all of that? And so there's a certain mysticism that's there. And so do your executives look at you like this white-eyed mystic? Or maybe that's you. Just love your computers. And when you talk to them, you talk a lot of the lingo and a lot of the jargon of IT. Or maybe that's you. And so what's really important when speaking with executives, you have to talk their language. And so if you're mystic or you're geeky in that conversation, you may have that problem where the executives really aren't engaged because they don't know what you're talking about. There's really funny, I was doing a presentation someplace else, and I was kind of curious how to make something sound tech jargony. And you can actually, you can go and use your DuckDuckGo and find out and just put it in there. There's an app online where you can ask it to spit back to you how much do you want, and it's just a whole bunch of tech jargon that sounds really cool that means absolutely nothing. And so, but a lot of times when you're talking to your executives, unless they do have that tech background, they're not going to understand. And so this concept of developing a strategy and presenting that strategy is important, that they need to be able to recognize us as this as we work with them. Now, through the course of developing the strategy, basically what it is that we're doing is we're trying to develop this roadmap. We want to get from one place and get to another place. And so, this from here to there, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And our jobs in cybersecurity, because we are kind of a special breed in technology, is that we have to be able to translate this out. This is what we need to be, and this is where we need to go. And so, in strategy, I'll let you read this, but definition of strategy. But the things that I want to kind of point out specifically in this is that it is explicit. Explicit means that it is defined, specifically defined. You're going to hand somebody a piece of paper and you can say, this is it, and it can be read. It is explicit. It is an explicit path for what you vision the future to be. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay, yeah, you have to be specific. So this is life cycle of strategy. Where are you in your organization and with cybersecurity? And where's the technology? If you don't know where you are, how can you effectively build that roadmap to where you want to be? Okay? So you have to go through that assessment process. You have to define where you are, identify where you want to be, and then you pull out the map and say, okay, how do I get there? Okay? It's not quite so easy. You can't pull up Google Maps because it's not going to be able to tell you. Okay? So, but you have to create that map for the business. I want to have these things in place by this time. Okay? And then as you go through this process, you do your monitoring and measuring. Okay? Tactics, though, this is the day-to-day tasks. This is what you're going to do on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis to ensure that you are staying on the road. Okay? That you haven't veered off on some tangent that when you got up to the spaghetti bowl that you didn't get to the wrong freeway, that you made the right lane changes. Okay? So you have to be able to do these iterative processes to know that you're still on track. And what are we going to do to get us down that road? And that's what our tactics are. And so you can see the tactics fall into that roadmap. Okay? Now the relationship between these two, suit son, art of war. You have to have both. You have to have a strategy and you have to have appropriate tactics if you're actually going to make this work. Okay? And then right here is our little quadrant. If you have an explicit path to a specific destination and you have good tactics, good means to get there, you're going to have quick success. If you don't have a plan and you're not sure what you're going to do and you just wing it, you wake up in the morning, put your finger up in the air and say, okay, this is the way the wind is blowing, this is what we need to do, you're going to have failure, and you're going to fail quickly. Okay? But of course, if you have a good plan but just bad tactics, you'll get there eventually. It's just going to take a lot of time. Okay? So in order to be able to work with your executive level, and in order to be able to be successful in getting from here to there, please develop a specific plan. And then develop what are we going to do to get us there? Okay, so it is October, and we're right in the middle of football season, so I thought I'd do a little bit of football to kind of help illustrate this. Red X's is the offense. Blue circles is the defense. Okay, any football fans out here? Yeah? Okay, so what kind of good offense is this? Offensive plays, anybody know? This is pretty good for passing, right? I mean, if you take a look at that, you've got 3 wide receivers out there. Right there on the right-hand side, kind of set back. You maybe have your tight end. He can be a good blocker. Maybe he'll just kind of roll out and be able to pick up a pass for a few yards. Okay, this is a good setup if you've got a strong passing strategy, right? If you have a good run strategy, then you have this kind of a setup. Maybe you have somebody out there, depending on the particular plays that you run, may kind of shift the way this is set up, but this is a good run strategy. Or, of course, you can also have the 5-year-old Pop Warner strategy, and they're all over the board. And I never played football at that age, but I played soccer, and wherever the ball was in soccer, you had 11 on both sides, 22 players there, and it was always the challenge keeping the goalie in the goal, right? And so anyway, the question is, what is the best strategy? Okay, this is one where you can raise your hands. Who thinks, in order to be successful in winning football, a passing strategy is your best strategy? Nobody? Okay, what about running? Nobody. So all of you then think number 3 is the best, right? Pop Warner? Yeah, of course, right? No, actually, what is the best? Yeah, it's a combination. Whatever the defense will allow. It depends, right? It depends on really quite a lot of factors that go into this, okay? And so we need to know, what's the caliber of our player, okay? A lot of people look at this and they think, oh, Charlie Brown, he missed the ball again. Well, what about that one guy, super talented, you never want them to receive the snap of the ball on a field goal kick. They're just going to drop the ball. Super talented, but that's not their game, okay? Don't put them in that position. Maybe you look at the other team and you think, that's who we're going to play today? Okay. Anybody a Patriots fan? Yeah? Anybody a Dolphins fan? I'm sorry if you're Dolphins this year. Okay? If you look, they're both in the AFC. They're in the same group. So the Patriots currently are 7-0. The Dolphins currently are 0-7. They've met one time so far this year. Anybody know what the score was? 43-0. Okay? The Dolphins and the Patriots are supposed to meet again on December 29th, and unless there's a big shift, what do you think the Dolphins are going to look at? Right? So sometimes you're just up against really bad odds. Weather conditions. Football's really hard in the rain. Football's really hard in the snow. It doesn't even necessarily have to be coming down right now, but if it's really muddy, it's pretty terrible. But do you think that the fans of the team really care about the weather, on whether or not the team does well or not? No, they want the team to win. Of course, if you have really bad conditions, then there's not much anybody can do. So this is actually Boston. This is actually number 2 on their list. You can see their little footnote there. This is number 2 on the biggest snowstorms in Boston history. This is February of 1978, and there was 27.1 inches of snow in a 24-hour period. And so, but this is number 2. Number 1 was 27.6 inches. But what about conditions like, does the team have any injuries? Okay, so I was having to tape up my foot, and so my son here, of course, had to have his foot taped as well, and so that way he can be like Dad. But it sometimes begs the question, does the team have real injuries, or are they faking their injuries? And depends on the person, of course, but you got to wonder sometimes. But if we translate from football into cybersecurity, okay, and we take a look at some of the basics, what caliber of player do you have on the field? Well, what are the skill sets of the people of that analyst that you have on your team? What is the strength of their team? What are the capabilities of the attacker? What tools do they have? What are the weather conditions like? Current threat landscape? Okay. Are there any injuries? Do we have any technical injuries, any vulnerabilities? What about the people injuries? Are they properly trained? Okay. In cybersecurity, in developing, I'm going to go through a few steps just to kind of, a suggestion of something that you can do to kind of help stabilize and maybe point the ship in the right direction. But one of the first things you really have to do is you have to designate some sense of a framework. Now, that framework may be imposed on you. There may come from some laws or regulations. There may be some industry standards, kind of like PCI, where they say, this is what you shall do, here you go. But if you're not one of those, you got to pick one. What about the NIST Cybersecurity Framework? CIS controls? COBIT? We talked about PCI. Oops. I'm sorry, can you get me my, well, let me get it real fast. I know where it is. Okay, so the thing about the frameworks is that you have to pick something that is going to work for you, right? Okay, if it's outlined for you, that's great, but if it's not, you got to pick something. You got to get started somewhere. And so in picking your framework, it really, if you're new to the game and you really don't have anything in place, pick something. It really doesn't matter. Just get started, get some kind of bearing, pick it, move forward. ISO is really great if you have to go cross, country boundaries. ISO is a great certification because it's recognized all around the world. Okay, but pick something. Okay. You can actually, even if you'd like to, you can kind of pick a little bit from here and a little bit from there. There are some really great things, like, at the Board of Education, I'm using the NIST Cybersecurity Framework as the main structure. But I'm looking at CIS, and I'm looking at PCI, and I'm pulling from a couple of things from those to kind of help shore up the cybersecurity framework and to help give me some prioritization and some focus. But once you get your framework in place, you've got to develop your policies, okay? Clearly stated expectations. Your policies should not be filled with a lot of words. Make it as short and succinct as possible of what you expect the environment to be like, what you expect your users to do, to not do, etc. Needs to be comprehensive, meaning that you have to cover as wide a girth of bases as you can to be able to cover your whole organization. And your policies need to be well defined. Okay, now you may say, oh, wait. Clearly stated and well defined, that's the same thing, right? No, clearly stated is thou shalt do this, thou shalt not do that. Well defined defines what this and that is. You shall have management of your assets for the full life cycle of the asset. Well, what's an asset? Okay, that's well defined is where you go in and create an asset. So what you can do is you have to take a look at your organization. If you do not have a whole lot of sensitive information,